Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 1. Now let's start the fanfic. The two stared at each other as they created their respective attacks as they prepared to beat the other, one to gain power and leave, the other to bring the latter back to their home and knock some sense into him. The first was Sasuke Uchiha of the Uchiha clan, and he was attempting to leave his village, Konoha, and go to the greatest trader of said village, Orochimaru of the Sannin. His goal was to gain power from the man to get strong enough to kill his older brother Itachi, who killed off their clan except Sasuke and one other, regardless of the consequences, and now wanted to kill the guy in front of him, his supposed best friend, to gain the next level of power for his dojutsu, the Sharingan. The second was Naruto Uzumaki, the dead last and the most unpredictable number 1 hyperactive knucklehead ninja, and he was attempting to drag back his supposed best friend even if he had to beat some sense into him. If one were to see them now, they would be surprised, as many would consider Sasuke the better and that Naruto should look like a training dummy that was used for hours without stop. However, that was not the case, as Sasuke was bloody, bruised, and his left arm looked broken despite being in the second stage of his curse seal, while Naruto only had some bumps and bruises, while his upper jacket was destroyed and his shirt showing a hole in the chest area due to Sasuke shoving an attack through his chest, and he was wrapped in a crimson fiery cloak due to him calling on the demon sealed within him, the nine-tailed demon fox aka Kyuubi. The two were currently making their attacks, with Sasuke's being a cursed-powered Chidori and Naruto's being a demonic-powered Rasengan. As the two leapt at each other, they both launched their arms forward and their two attacks clashed, with both attackers gritting their teeth in effort before Naruto shocked Sasuke by swinging his other arm forward and slamming a second Rasengan into his gut, and Sasuke screamed as the Rasengan dug into him before he was propelled back into the canyon wall, while Naruto landed and took some deep breaths. As he stood and the Kyuubi cloak receded, he walked to Sasuke, who fell out of the crater onto the ground as the curse mark receded and he appeared normal, well, as normal as he could, with his torso burned and twisted slightly from the Rasengan hitting him. Naruto reached him and rolled him over, getting a groan from him as he was still slightly conscious, and Naruto kept catching his breath. "I told you, Sasuke, you're not going anywhere," he stated, and Sasuke passed out. Just as Naruto was about to pick the bastard up, he turned to see Kabuto there with some sound ninja and growled, "Well, that was surprising, Naruto-kun. No one expected that you would be able to beat Sasuke," Kabuto stated with a large smirk on his face before he frowned at seeing Kakashi land with Genma, Yugao, and Anko. However, before anyone could comment, dark clouds formed, confusing everyone before yellow electricity began sparking around Naruto before a gold light shot down and surrounded Naruto, shocking everyone, but Kabuto used this opportunity to grab Sasuke and leave, while the other sound ninja moved with him a distance behind should they need to give him time. Kakashi and the others would have reacted, had it not been for the fact the light vanished with Naruto along with it. Damn it. Come on, we have to try and get Sasuke before they make it across the border, Kakashi ordered, while the others looked skeptical. But what about Naruto? Anko asked, and Kakashi shrugged uncaringly, making the Genma frown, while Yugao and Anko scowled slightly. He doesn't matter. He's nothing but a waste of time. Sasuke does, as he is the one of the last Uchiha and should be protected. Now let's go, he stated as he jumped off into the trees, while Anko and Genma followed after. Yugao motioned them to, and she began to look around before Jiraiya came and was looking around in confusion. "Neko, what's going on? Where is everyone?" he asked, and Yugao sighed slightly, knowing this wasn't going to go well. Kakashi, Anko-chan, and Genma are pursuing Kabuto as he is transporting Sasuke, but, she stated, and Jiraiya frowned before motioning for her to speak, "Naruto is gone." There were dark clouds, strange electricity, and then a bright gold light came down on him and he was gone. Kakashi then ordered us after Sasuke before then stating that Naruto didn't matter as he was just a waste of time when Anko asked about Naruto. She stated as she saw Jiraiya have a shocked face before it twisted into rage, which he showed by smashing part of the cliffside and it came crashing down making Yugao widen her eyes in shock as that was strength on par with Tsunade. Neko, rush back to the village and tell Tsunade what happened and to send the best trackers, analysts, and anyone else that could help with this matter and to do it fast. He ordered while she nodded and took off while Jiraiya sent a clone to help Kakashi, if for no other reason than he could beat the ever-living hell out of him after possibly getting the Uchiha brat back before giving anything that was left to Tsunade to deal with and planning on recommending the brat was executed for treason. Naruto, please be alright. Jiraiya thought as he began looking and even called a few toads to help him. Unknown location and time. With Naruto. Naruto groaned as he opened his eyes and found himself in a weird place. All he saw around him was blackness with gold words, lines, and symbols on all sides of him and it seemed to be flowing everywhere. He stood up from being on the ground and looked around in confusion. Where the heck am I and what the heck happened? He asked as he popped his neck and rolled his shoulders as he was still sore from the battle with Sasuke. You are in between, child. A woman's voice sounded while having an echo quality to it and Naruto turned to see a woman with brunette-colored hair to her shoulders and piercing eyes in a white dress and headdress and an older man with a white furry beard in an sleeveless armored white kimono-type outfit with a cape flowing and hiding his right arm while his head had a crown helm over his head that revealed his face and was a head taller than the woman. We are glad that you arrived here unharmed, child. The woman stated and Naruto frowned as most of the time when women spoke to him in the comforting way she did, it was only to get him into a position where they could harm him. You still haven't answered where exactly I am and what happened. Furthermore, I want to know why the heck I'm here and who the hell you are. He stated while the two nodded since his reaction was to be expected. Calm yourself, child, we will explain everything. The man stated and Naruto sighed before nodding. Now, as to where you are, this is a place we created long ago to allow us to talk with people of our choosing to be our avatars, our champions if you prefer, and is in between different worlds that exist. As to what happened, we called you from your world as we needed your help and you would have died in that valley had we not intervened. He stated confusing then shocking Naruto before he continued. Now, I have answered why you are here. As to who we have gone by many names over our time of being alive and the name I was last called is Jupiter and beside me is Minerva. The now named Jupiter stated and Naruto frowned in thought. So what the heck do you need me for anyway? I can't be the only one that you could have taken and, while I am grateful that I am not dying anytime soon, there had to be a reason besides me possibly getting killed that made you pick me. He stated as he had a hard time believing that he was the only one of these so-called avatars that they could just pull out when they wanted and that they were just going to save him out of the goodness of their hearts. He was nowhere near as naive or stupid as people thought he was, he just knew the best way to survive was to appear as such and he also had a promise to keep involving that matter. From the looks on Minerva's and Jupiter's faces, they knew fully well that he wasn't a fool. You are right, child, we chose you because we have seen the life you have lived and wished to help you get the training, respect, and honor that you should have gotten from the start. It also is due to your unique status helping to ensure what we need done is done. You see, we want to send you to a world where we once lived and there are several items that have extraordinary powers and a rogue being that is of our race. What we want you to do is drain the power from these items as you can and lead the people that will allow the rogue being to come into a position where you can kill her and end her threat to the world. In exchange, you will keep powers and abilities that you gain from the items and we will help you in other ways as well. Minerva stated and Naruto widened his eyes in surprise at the request. Jupiter nodded, and to ensure you get the training to survive, We have 3 individuals that can help you. He stated as he motioned behind Naruto and he turned to see 2 people he was shocked to see and one he didn't know. Before him was the 4th Hokage, Kyuubi, and a woman with red hair that he didn't know. But why them? I mean, one is, or apparently was, sealed into me, another put him there, and the lady I don't even know. So why them? He asked, missing the shocked looks of the 4th and the woman before. The woman walked up with tears in her eyes and pulled Naruto into a hug, making him stiffen and wonder what the heck was going on. Naru-chan, I'm Kushina Uzumaki, your mother. She stated, and Naruto widened his eyes in shock as the now named Kushina continued to cry. I am so sorry that I wasn't there for you, but I died during the Kyuubi attack. I am so sorry, Sochi. She stated before she felt arms wrap around her and saw Naruto bury his face into her as he cried too and hugged her back. The 4th then came up and had a feeling he knew what to expect before he joined in the hug before pulling back when Naruto turned to him. Sigh, Naruto, I'm not just the 4th Hokage, I'm also your father, Minato Namikaze, and I am so sorry for doing that, but there was no one else I could trust to contain Kyuubi. The now named Minato stated before bracing himself as Naruto hung his head for a moment and moved from his mother and right on K. Naruto slugged him right in the face. You freaking moron! Naruto shouted as his fist met Minato's face before he gripped him by his cloak with rage, betrayal, and sadness in his eyes. Do you have any idea what my life has been like because of your decision? Exclamation mark. I can't even be upset at Kyuubi because he didn't ask to be sealed inside me, and it never made any sense that he would just suddenly attack the village. Now I find out my father is the one who did this to me. Gah. I don't know whether to be pissed off or happy to finally know who the heck my family is. Naruto shouted before he began rubbing his head frantically as he took some breaths while Minato smiled sadly. Kushina had more tears coming from her eyes, and Kyuubi was shocked. Naruto didn't blame him for anything. Naruto, how old are you now? He asked as he wondered how much his boy could have gone through and wondered why he was so short, and Naruto sighed slightly. I'm 12 going on 13, and if you're wondering about my height and everything, it's because I could only ever eat ramen since no one but the local ramen chefs would sell me any food without overcharging me, trying to poison me, or chasing me away. He stated, making Kyuubi lower his head slightly while Minato and Kushina were horrified before Naruto sat down. Those 2, Hinata-chan, and the 3rd were the only ones that looked out for me, and now I question about the 3rd since there is no way he didn't know about this, and that goes for Jiraiya and Tsunade too since they would have to know. He stated, making the 2 look down in sadness and shame. Kit, you might as well go ahead and tell them everything, and I do mean everything. Also, get rid of that stupid mask. There is no reason for it anymore, and your promise to the old man stopped being valid when he died. Kyuubi stated while giving a look to Minerva and Jupiter that this needed to be done and then they could work out the details later, with the 2 older beings nodding in agreement. Naruto sighed tiredly before he began telling them everything from the villagers' abuse to Kakashi's neglect. The convenience of the 3rd coming to his rescue at times to the council hating him, everyone fawning over Sasuke to ensuring he himself never got a passing grade or any praise, from him taking down some enemies and never getting the credit to him only having a few to actually call friends, and each one just piled on the pain in Minato's and Kushina's hearts. He then told him that when he was 5 he actually beat the hell out of a Chunin that attacked him, and the 3rd made him promise not to show his real skill unless he was attacked again, since it would make certain powers try harder to kill him, and so he made his dumb, happy, idiot persona. By the end of it, Kushina was in tears, and Minato decided that he owed Naruto about another 500 punches, at least, for his stupidity in believing that the village would listen to him. Naruto sighed tiredly as he hated those memories. We can all hug it out or punch it out later, but what are you three actually going to be doing to help me? Naruto asked, and Minato and Kushina began schooling their features and calming down while Minerva and Jupiter came over. The three of them were all sealed into you in some way. Kyuubi was entirely sealed except for half of his chakra, Minato sealed part of his soul and chakra, and Kushina put some of her own soul and chakra into it as well. What we are doing, after negotiating with the Shinigami, is putting them entirely into the seal, with them being able to talk and train with you in your mindscape, and once you've learned all that they can teach you and give you their chakra, they will pass on and your power will increase accordingly, as their chakra will become your own over time as each one is finished. Minerva stated, and the four nodded before Jupiter spoke next. And before you get nervous about time, we are unlocking a bloodline that was dormant inside of your two clans for centuries, and you have the complete version from having both clans and Kyuubi's demonic chakra flowing through you. What it will do is it will stop you from aging once you reach 18, and you will be able to regrow limbs and other parts so long as your head isn't cut from your body, your heart isn't ripped out, or your body is destroyed entirely. It can also be given to any woman, or women, that you end up being with. The reason we are doing this is because it will take a long time before the rogue being is in the position where you can defeat her. Jupiter stated, surprising the four individuals, and Naruto frowned. But, if I'm gone a long time, then won't that mean everyone in my home will age too? He asked with confusion evident in his voice, since if he was going to be gone a really long time then he didn't want to return home to nothing. Jupiter shook his head. No, each world has its own laws and rules, such as your world having those three deities to regulate everything. Another example is each world has its own cycle of time. One world may be in its early stages, barely even hitting 100 years, while another may be hitting over 2000, even though the first world came into existence before the second one. The world we wish to send you to has time flowing at a faster rate than your world, so while you may indeed be there for a long time to you in that world, it may not be more than a few years in your world. The exact count is very difficult to calculate, and I don't think you care very much as long as you have the security that everything you know will not be gone when you return. Jupiter stated, and Naruto nodded while sighing in relief at that. Now if you are prepared, we can send you there. He stated, and Naruto nodded as he stood straight. We wish you the best of luck, child, and know you may see us again during certain events that will help guide those that must be at certain places and times to ensure Juno, the rogue entity, is destroyed entirely. Minerva stated, and Naruto nodded before the area faded into white. The Holy Lands. 1179, 10 years before the Third Crusade, just outside the borders of the fortress of Masayoff. Naruto groaned as he got up off the ground while finding himself someplace warm, lush enough, and that he had some weird clothes in the form of boots, loose pants, a tunic of some kind, and a scarf-like wrap that he could use to cover his head. As he adjusted to his surroundings, he began hearing sounds of combat and moved towards it before seeing an older man dressed in black robes holding a sword standing beside three younger men dressed in white versions of the older's outfit with some leather armor, with two holding swords and one holding a large knife. The four were surrounded by about 15 other men wearing dark brown and red outfits with armor and curved swords out. The weird thing was, the four had a blue glow around them while the others had a red glow around. Naru-chan, that glow is part of an eye ability Minerva and Jupiter gave you to help you get through this world easier. Blue is friendly, red is an enemy, gold is someone important like a target, and no glow means they are nothing to you, or at least right now they aren't. Kushina stated over their link while she and Minato sat in a little house in Naruto's mindscape next to a mountain with a large den for Kyuubi. Minato then chimed in, Naruto, you should also know that they made it so you speak the native language and gave us material to help you learn more languages as you need them. Oh, And don't use any jutsu since we don't know if these people are staying as your allies or friends and may need to be eliminated later on, so best to keep your aces hidden until otherwise necessary. Naruto nodded before feeling for anything he still had on him and found he did have one kunai still, and with that thought he leapt into the fray, catching one of the armored people off guard, and Naruto stabbed him in the neck before throwing the kunai into another's throat and taking the first one's sword. He took a shaky stance as the four were surprised at the skill and efficiency of one so young, while the others were now upset that there was another threat to eliminate. As one came at Naruto with his sword high, Naruto dodged the overhead attack before he put the sword in his hand into the attacker's chest and then pulled it out before grabbing the blade from the man he just killed and threw them both into two others. He then moved and took his kunai before ducking a swing from another attacker and stabbed his kunai into his foot before riding it up his leg, cutting it open and causing him to die of blood loss. He then turned and threw it into the last attacker that was coming up behind the older man as he was distracted watching Naruto work while the three in white killed the rest of the attackers. The older man gazed at the handiwork of the young man before him and was indeed impressed. While he was a bit rough and lacking in his stance and fighting technique, he couldn't deny the boy had talent and skill that defied his age and stature. Sheathing his blade, the older man watched as the young man walked by and took his knife back before facing him. "I must say, that was an impressive display, young man. What is your name?" the older man asked as the three others came over to ensure the boy didn't try anything on their master. "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," Naruto stated with a light bow as his mother and father were telling him about his manners after the fight. "May I ask your name and why these men wanted you dead?" Naruto asked as he stood there with his kunai now tucked into the belt-like sash around his waist. The man bowed slightly back. "I am Al-Mualim and they were after me to potentially destroy the Brotherhood of Assassins that I am the leader of as we fight to keep mankind free and ensure no one attempts to control the course of human history like our enemies the Templars wish to do." The now named Al-Mualim stated as he hoped to make the boy interested and join their side. Naruto nodded thoughtfully. "May I inquire as to what you are doing out here alone, young man?" Al-Mualim asked, and Naruto blinked before having a quick mental conversation with his now three tenants. "My family was killed a few months ago and we trained to be skilled fighters and, if needed, killers, but I never completed that training due to me being in the early stages of it. So I've been wandering getting scraps or whatever I can to eat from doing work or stealing it while also training my body," Naruto stated, and Al-Mualim frowned and nodded as he could tell the boy was malnourished and was lucky he had any of his fitness that he did at the moment. "I see. Perhaps you would accompany me to the fortress we occupy and perhaps join us. We can give you food, shelter, training, and brothers to look out for you." Al-Mualim offered, and Naruto frowned before nodding and giving a light bow to show he was grateful before he walked with Al-Mualim and the three others to the fortress of Masayoff, while wondering just how much of a wild ride he got himself into and how long he would be in this world. Little did he know, he would never be able to justifiably call Tsunade grandma ever again. Los Angeles, 2037, 858 years later. An 18-year-old looking Naruto stood atop Abstergo Industries dressed very differently than how he was when he arrived, and it was only natural due to the times and the fact that he got his needed growth spurt, which he knew was from solely eating ramen growing up, and now stood at an impressive height of 6 feet 8 inches with a lean muscular build like a professional runner. He now wore combat boots, dark blue pants with an array of pockets with a belt to match with many pouches with the buckle being the emblem of the Assassin Brotherhood and a pair of pistol holsters on it, a pair of holsters on his torso that connected to a holster on his back with a dark red muscle shirt underneath it, two gauntlet-like black gloves over his hands with the wrists being bulged out slightly to accommodate his personal hidden blades, and a black form-fitting hooded trench coat was over all of it with different seals inside of it and a crimson eagle spreading its wings on the back. His hair also was different in that it now reached his shoulders and looked just like his dad's, but he got a bit of his mother's in that the tips of his hair were all flaming red like her hair was. The only other noticeable difference was he had 3 scars down the right side of his face from a particularly brutal mission that went wrong. As he stood there ready to leave, he thought back on his adventure throughout this world and the course he took to get here. After training for a decade under al-Mu'allim's teachings, he aided his best friend and first brother Altair ibn Lahad on his mission to redeem himself as al-Mu'allim put it, and then helped Altair revolutionize the Brotherhood while Naruto ensured that he, meaning Naruto, never touched the apple so he wouldn't drain the powers of it too soon as it was needed for someone else in the future. Then he followed Marco Polo for a while and helped set up the Turkish Assassin Guild, before moving on and helping to set up the sanctuary in Italy for one Ezio Auditore da Firenze to find and unlock, and then helped him in his different missions, went to China soon after, then to the Caribbean, the Americas, France, then England, and then all over the place before meeting one Lucy Stillman and then one Desmond Miles before ensuring that Desmond didn't die when Juno needed to be released. Speaking of which, come to say your goodbyes, Desmond? Naruto asked as he turned to see the man behind him, only older than his last thoughts about him, since it had been 25 years since Juno was released and 10 years since Juno took physical form and Naruto fought her before he then spent the last 10 years bringing the Templars down while saving the few who actually believed in their work and uniting them with the assassins that were open to peace and the actual betterment of humanity and turned them into the freemen. Just coming to give you a good send-off, mentor. Desmond stated as Sean Hastings, Rebecca Crane, and Lucy Stillman came to him as well. Naruto smiled at them and the addressment of him, since after Altair died he was named as the Guardian Mentor, the mentor that was not restricted to any one country or area and was to ensure the other mentors were prepared for any new developments and trained any future mentor candidates, just as he did with Ezio. Thanks, though I trust you will ensure the others don't slack off and train the next generation, mentor. He stated while smiling at Desmond, nodding and holding Lucy comfortingly while she rubbed her slightly bulging stomach that held their third child as, contrary to popular belief, Lucy and Desmond were only 17 when they had that adventure of Desmond reliving Altair's memories and had only settled down and got together after Juno was killed. It was then that a shadow clone came and brought Naruto the 2 items he needed to finish his mission: the papal staff that was lost when Rodrigo Borgia attempted to open the vault and the apple of Eden that Connor Kenway dropped into the Atlantic while Naruto was in France. I still can't get used to that, Sean stated, and Rebecca giggled lightly before kissing his cheek as they were together too, with Rebecca only just recently finding out she was pregnant as well. They weren't surprised as they were among the rare few Naruto actually informed about himself, as his parents and Tenant had told him he should connect with some people to keep from getting mad before said people passed on. His parents had passed on after about 50 years and Kyuubi followed after his 2nd century, and Naruto had heeded their words and as such had trusted Altair, Ezio, and a few other assassins he trained throughout the centuries. Nor do I expect you to, especially since such things shouldn't be possible until a long time from now, Naruto stated as his clone set the staff down with the apple on the upper part of it before saluting to Naruto and waving to the others before poofing away. Well, this is where I say goodbye and good luck to you guys, Naruto stated as he shook their hands and gave them each a fatherly hug goodbye before he grabbed to staff and yellow lightning sparked down the apple and staff and then traveled his arm where it was absorbed into his body. The 2 items then disintegrated as their power was lost and the dark clouds gathered again as yellow lightning began to occur, and Naruto waved goodbye with a smile before the yellow light enveloped him and he was gone. Desmond and the others smiled happy for him before they went to go meet up with the others as Naruto had taken over Abstergo and turned it into the main base for the Freemen after killing off all the employees who knew, helped, and approved of what the Templars were doing and kept the other employees. In Between Worlds, Naruto arrived back in the in-between area and found Minerva and Jupiter there. Thank you, Naruto. You have done this world a great service and we can never repay you for that. We shall now uphold our end of the bargain and send you back to your world now, and we will uphold that additional agreement. Minerva stated and Jupiter nodded. I hope you can do for your world what you did for our old one and find peace and happiness. May your blade taste your enemy's blood. Jupiter stated, using a term used by the assassins at one point or another, and Naruto nodded with a light bow of respect before light engulfed him again. Elemental countries. The gold light shot down in the Valley of the End and Naruto found himself in his world again and smiled as it felt good to be home. He paused as he thought that, home, what was his home, since he doubted Konoha was better than it was, and he certainly doubted that he wasn't marked as a missing nin now after all this. He sighed to himself before deciding to think on that later. He had some errands to do before he did any of that, and the first stop was to Whirlpool and then he had to go to Wave Country. Rotating his neck and joints and getting the satisfying pops from them, he took off at blinding speed. Wave Country. A day later. It had only taken a few hours for Naruto to make it to his ancestral homeland and then another couple hours to get the items his mother told him were within, which was why he now sported some pauldrons that were shaped like a dragon and tiger head, greaves that had snakes coiled on them, bracers that had lion heads on them, and a chest piece that had an eagle on it that belonged to his great-grandfather and had the Uzumaki spiral shown proudly on them along with the animals. He also now had an even larger knowledge of sealing than he did before, thanks to an unexpected benefit of having his parents and Kyuubi share his mind. His mind processed and learned things 4 times faster due to them helping sort and organize information, and his mind naturally adapted to it. Then add in some 100 or so clones and you get him learning everything in the vaults of Uzu in a matter of minutes. Right now he was in Wave Country while planning on going to the 2 graves of the first people outside of Konoha that he respected. The reason he was here was because in 1746, Naruto had asked Minerva and Saturn to let him speak to Zabuza about a few things. The swordsman had been shown Naruto's life, both in and out of their world, and gave his blessing for Naruto to use his sword, and then asked for a favor from the 3 of them. Naruto was here to make good on that favor. However, there was also a family that he wanted to see after so long, and pulled his hood over his head before placing a mask he modeled after Ishaq Pasha's armored mask and walked through Wave on his way to see a certain drunkard and his family. At Tazuna's house, in said old drunk's home, Tsunami was doing the dishes peacefully while her mind drifted to a certain blonde boy that had saved their country 5 years ago, and then the subsequent sadness upon learning from the female Hokage that he disappeared. Inari had locked himself in his room for a week crying his eyes out, and Tsunami was no better, as she had a crush on the boy after he saved her, helped her son, and then freed their country, and him being cute and his never give up personality didn't hurt either. She had not done anything about it due to the age difference and that he seemed to be infatuated, to her bewilderment, with that pink-haired girl that she swore cracked their windows with her voice. It wasn't like there were any other issues. Her father didn't care since he respected the boy, and Inari viewed Naruto as a big brother if not an almost father figure with how they interacted. She wished that she hadn't been scared in telling him, as she wanted to be with him now. Her thoughts were broken as she heard a knock at the door and she stopped the dishes to go see who it was. When she opened the door, she was surprised and confused to see a tall man with a dark outfit and a smile on his face. What she could see of it. Yes, can I help you? She asked, as she didn't feel any malicious intent from the man and he seemed familiar to her for some reason. It's been a while, Tsunami-chan. Naruto stated as he pulled his hood back, and Tsunami gasped at seeing a now older Naruto. Naruto-kun. She shouted happily before embracing him in a hug, and Naruto chuckled slightly before returning the hug, and Tsunami blushed at the feel of his muscles under his clothing and the feel of his strong arms around her. She then blushed brighter when Naruto kissed her forehead and stepped back. It's hard to believe, but I think you are even more beautiful than last time I saw you, he stated, and she blushed brighter, and it only got worse when he kissed her hand. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Please come in and sit, she stated as she practically dragged him inside, and he chuckled knowing it was pointless to struggle and sat at the table as Tsunami got tea and sat across from him. Where have you been for the past 5 years, Naruto-kun? She asked, and Naruto took a sip of the tea while mentally sighing in relief that it had only been 5 years since he left. Naruto sighed as he stared at his tea for a minute. A long ways off training, though I didn't willingly go, but I had to go nonetheless. I've seen things, learned things, and done things that many wouldn't believe if I told them. I've done more in my time away than most people do in 50 lifetimes, he stated as he took a drink of the tea, and Tsunami decided to drop it as she could see pain in Naruto's eyes that she had seen in her own and Inari's when Kaiza died and when the country began to turn for the worst. Naruto-kun, what happened to you while you were gone? She thought worriedly before smiling slightly. I understand, Naruto-kun, if you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here, she stated, and Naruto smiled slightly. But, before he could respond, the door opened and in walked Inari and Tazuna. Kasen, we're back, Inari stated before he saw the man at the table and was confused before he noticed the features of wild blonde hair, deep pure blue eyes, and the whisker marks, and his eyes widened before he lunged at the individual, who had the wisdom to stand and move to an open spot. Naruto Nisan. Inari shouted as he hugged the older taller boy, and Naruto chuckled and returned the hug while Tazuna was surprised at the appearance of the boy. Hee, good to see you too, Inari, but what's up? You're shorter than last time, Naruto stated with a grin while Inari pouted slightly with Tsunami giggled slightly. I'm not shorter, Nisan, you're just taller, Inari stated before grinning and hugging Naruto again, though he wondered if his mom had told Naruto that she had a crush on him yet. He didn't mind if she did pursue a relationship with him since Naruto was awesome and would make her happy and wouldn't do a thing to hurt her. Damn kid, do you know the trouble you caused with that disappearing act you pulled? Tazuna stated as he had the same feelings about Naruto being with Tsunami as Inari did, and with the recent growth spurt the kid, no, that this man had, then there wouldn't be much problem. Naruto nodded, figuring that since Suna, Wave, Spring, and Waterfall were only allied with Konoha because of him, Tsunade was only Hokage because of him, and Neji was only friendly with the main branch again because of him, I guess that, but it's doubtful many back in Konoha cared that I was gone. Naruto stated sadly, since he knew of only 7 people that he knew for sure would miss him, while the other 3 frowned slightly before Tazuna decided to change the topic. So kid, if I can even call you that anymore, what brings you here? He asked with Tsunami and Inari perking up and nodding as they wondered that too. Naruto smiled with a sigh. Right now, I'm just going to stay here in Wave for a while until I can figure out what to do after I take care of some business. That reminds me, do you have a shovel? He asked, and the 3 all looked confused and curious. A few miles from the house, 20 minutes later, Naruto stood before the graves of Zabuza and Haku with the shovel he borrowed from Tazuna sitting in a mound of dirt that he had removed, and showed him the body of Haku still appearing like she did years ago with the gaping hole in her chest still. Naruto moved and stood over her body before he held his hand out, and a spectral apple of Eden formed in his hand before he pressed it into Haku's body. Awaken Haku-chan, join the living once more. He stated before she gasped as life flooded her again and she aged a few years before she began panicking before Naruto held her to him and she kept squirming. It's alright Haku-chan, it's me, Naruto. He stated and she looked up at him and widened her eyes before she calmed down if only slightly. What happened, Naruto-kun? She asked while blushing at how handsome he looked now and the feel of his muscles under his clothes and Naruto sighed before he sat down with her in his lap and she blushed harder and even more when he started stroking her hair. Haku-chan, after you took the hit from Kakashi, Gato betrayed you and Zabuza and in a rage Zabuza rushed in and began killing the mercenaries between him and Gato before he then killed Gato and died from his wounds. He stated and felt Haku stiffen and begin crying into his chest. Nearly a year later, I got sent on a wild mission from some other parties and they actually made it so I could talk with Zabuza and offered him a chance to live again. He instead wanted me to take up his sword and bring you back Haku-chan. He considered you a daughter. Naruto continued and Haku widened her eyes in shock before she held Naruto tighter and began crying again while Naruto just stroked her back and whispered sweet words into her ear. After a few minutes, she calmed down and looked up at him hopefully. Naruto-kun, please accept me, I want to be your tool and soldier. I'll obey you and do whatever you want, but please don't leave or abandon me. She begged as she held him closer to her as she couldn't think of anyone else that she would want to serve and Zabuza having Naruto take up his sword just made him the best choice even more. Naruto held her and rubbed her back while comforting her. I'll keep you safe Haku-chan, I'll protect you and care about you. He stated and she cried harder as she continued to hug him and he held and comforted her. Naruto knew she had feelings for him beyond that of a friend or master as his mother had helped him hone his Uzumaki sensor abilities and also knew that Tsunami did as well and knew he'd have to talk to them about certain things if they wanted a relationship. 2 weeks later, Tazuna's house. Naruto groggily opened his eyes to feeling a weight on his chest and saw Haku there looking peaceful and content and noticed Tsunami was not there with them. They had begun sleeping together, the non-kind, the day he came back with Haku and explained to them that he used some skills he picked up while gone to bring her back but he couldn't do so for Kaiza unfortunately as he was dead too long. Afterwards, he pulled Tsunami and Haku aside and told them that while he wouldn't mind being a relationship with either of them, he was supposed to rebuild his clans at some point if for no other reason than to make good on a promise he made his mother that he'd give her lots of grandkids. The two had blushed as red as a tomato when he mentioned that and received a kiss to the cheek each and he told them to consider it. That night he was dragged to the room and told that he was sleeping in there with them from now on and he didn't complain though he made sure that he kept a long-sleeved shirt and pants on for reasons he wouldn't tell them but mentioned that he would later. Anyway, after that he began training Haku in weapons, taijutsu, and water, wind, and ice manipulation due to him having plenty of time during his centuries of life and thus was able to utilize some information Kyuubi had on how to access and make the sub-elements through trial and error so he was very skilled, a master in ice manipulation and helped Haku with some jutsu he had created and the jutsu his parents and Kyuubi were aware of. He also began teaching Inari some shinobi training exercises such as taijutsu exercises, weapons, and even helping him begin unlocking his chakra. On another note, he talked with Tazuna and the other prominent figures of Wave, counting the daimyo, and actually turned the entire country into his own spy network as everyone would give any noteworthy information to Tazuna, Tsunami, or Inari if Naruto was not around and then they would keep track of it all to tell him when they could and since Wave became such a massive trade hub over the years, due in part to the people that were Naruto's allies paying specific attention to Wave for trade and such, it would be a bustling place for information to be gained. This was the main reason Naruto had clones build a bird co-op outside of Tazuna's house as he had actually made his own contract with some eagles, hawks, pigeons, and falcons that he caught, trained, and raised over the centuries, and they were trained to go from any location he marked to any other location he specified without fail. Anyway, he kissed Haku's forehead and she shifted slightly before he smirked and kissed her full on her lips, causing her to moan slightly before he felt her return the kiss. Naruto smirked slightly and brushed his tongue across her lips before he felt them part and began exploring her mouth with his tongue. After about a minute, he pulled back and saw her open her brown eyes at him. "Good morning, gorgeous," Naruto stated with a smile while Haku blushed and gave him a peck on the lips. "Good morning, handsome, thank you for the wake-up call," she stated before she got up and stretched, giving Naruto a perfect view of her athletic body, DDD cup, and her firm toned as both she and Tsunami had been sleeping in their underwear after the first week. Haku knew he was looking and loved the fact he would look at her and Tsunami both respectfully and lustfully, but would always look at their faces when they spoke and never made an advance on them if he wasn't going to do the same to the other. "So what is the plan for today?" she asked while making sure to give her master, as she was his tool and he was her teacher, a teasing look at her thong-covered rear end when she, conveniently, had to bend over to grab something. Naruto smirked at the sight. He found it arousing for sure, but since he had been around more professional women in the art of seduction during his time in Constantinople and Italy, since courtesans were one of their key groups for information and potential assassination, he wasn't hot and bothered like other males would be, working on your speed and finding you a suitable weapon finally, he stated as he got up and dressed for the day while ensuring he wasn't without clothing in front of Haku, yet. With a quick kiss to the cheek, Haku watched Naruto leave the room and wondered what happened that he took such care not to let anyone see him under his clothes. The only parts they had ever seen were his hands, which had a scar on his ring finger on his left hand, his face, which had the 3 scars on them, and his feet, which also had marks on the bottoms of them. It was just strange to her as he had told them that he was Jinchuriki to the Kyuubi, so why did he have scars if the chakra healed the wounds quickly? Shaking her head from those thoughts, as she trusted Naruto would tell them when he was ready, she dressed and got ready for the day. Downstairs, Tsunami was busy making breakfast with a smile on her face before she stiffened at feeling someone groping hair and kissing her neck. She moaned slightly knowing it was Naruto before she turned and pulled him into a searing kiss that nearly made her melt into his other arm as it circled her waist. After a minute or so, he pulled back and she leaned back against his chest. "Good morning, Tsunami-chan," Naruto stated, and she smiled before kissing his cheek, and he let her go back to cooking before Haku came down and sat beside Naruto. When Tsunami was done cooking, she placed the food on the table when Inari came bolting into the house. "Nisan." "Trouble," he shouted, causing Naruto to pay attention to him. "What happened?" he asked as Inari panted to catch his breath as he ran all the way from Tezuna's newest construction project, which Naruto had commissioned and paid for to better protect the country, to tell Naruto something. "The pant of Suna was kidnapped," he stated, causing Naruto widen his eyes, but Naruto was able to see there was more, and Inari took another moment to catch his breath. "The cage is that friend of yours that you told us about, Gaara," Inari stated, and Naruto widened his eyes before growling. "Do you know who it was?" he asked as his knuckles popped audibly from him slowly making a fist, and Inari took a moment before answering. "Some guys in black cloaks with red clouds and straw hats with bells," Inari stated, and Naruto growled a bit more. "Akatsuki. Haku. Get your gear together, we're going to help him," he ordered, and Haku was gone in a flash to their room to get everything she needed while Naruto kissed Tsunami on the cheek and patted Inari on the head before he walked out while hearing Tsunami give a "stay safe" that he nodded towards before Haku was next to Naruto instantly. Naruto grabbed her waist before they vanished in a burst of speed. Just inside the border of Wind Country, 3 hours later. The two Akatsuki members, Deidara of Iwa and Sasori of Suna, were walking along while Deidara's clay construct was carrying Gaara's unconscious form as the two argued over their views on art. Sasori, you have no sense of beauty. The only real art is that of an explosion. Deidara stated before he ducked the tail attached to Sasori that struck out at him. Shut up, Deidara, and keep moving. You know how much I hate to keep people waiting, almost as much as I hate to be kept waiting. He stated, and, before Deidara could respond, there was a loud bang and Deidara screamed as something pierced through his right hand and the two jumped away as ice needles rained down on them. Deidara cursed as he looked at his hand and saw a hole through it that cut the tongue in his hand's mouth off, making it impossible for him to use his clay in that hand, and, on top of that, his construct was destroyed by the needles, which coincidentally missed Gaara entirely. However, his thoughts were broken as his danger senses went off and he leapt to the side just in time to dodge a mortal strike from an axe head on a pole, but his right arm wasn't so lucky and was cleaved clean off. He growled as he held his now stump of an arm as he saw a figure armored and wearing a hood and mask to hide his, as the build suggested, a face and hair, and the figure stood there at the ready while Deidara kept the snarl on his face even if on the inside he was smirking as Sasori was getting ready to attack from behind. However, the figure grabbed something and threw it over his shoulder before it smashed into Sasori, creating a large explosion that kicked up a ton of dust, sand, and Deidara readied himself for anything as he couldn't see anything. Then there was another loud bang and Deidara felt something wet going down his front and looked to see a decent-sized hole in his chest and coughed up some blood before he fell to his knees, only to feel someone behind him before he felt a blade pierce his neck, go once more into the breach and find the beauty you so desired to create. Requiescat in pace. He heard the figure state before his life faded and Naruto removed his head and sealed it away. Naruto then activated his personal version of what Altair called Eagle Vision, which Naruto called the Washigan, Eagle Eye, that was a hybrid of all the other versions that he encountered by aiding the other assassins. He could see targets, mark them to see them through buildings and objects, see routes and latent tracks or past images of someone moving. He could send the pulse out to see everything, one around him, and had a few other tricks up his sleeves with it from having 8 centuries to use and develop it, and the best part was that it didn't take any chakra to use it. So, naturally, he was able to dodge the surprise attack committed by Sasori, which were some blades that were built into his arms. Naruto retaliated by mule kicking him back a good deal where he was rained on by ice needles, but he released 2 large bladed fans propellers from his back that spun and blocked the needles. But said needles were only a distraction as Naruto's eyes let him see that the only real part of Sasori was the small cylinder item in his left shoulder, and Naruto took his specialized rifle, which had the appearance of a Winchester rifle but had a modern grip, shotgun barrel, and an array of seals over it to take and put different additions on it, and put a bullet covered in lightning chakra right through it. Sasori froze in place as he felt pain for the first time in decades before he felt what little bit of life liquid he had left begin leaving his heart, and couldn't move due to the lightning locking the mechanisms inside him before Naruto put another round through it covered in fire chakra and felt the fire begin eating away the cylinder. Sasori was fighting to move or do anything, but his attempts were for nothing as the loudest bang echoed out and he felt the entire cylinder be destroyed as Naruto fired a slug covered in wind chakra. Sasori fell over dead before the dust settled down again, and Naruto returned his rifle to a seal and moved next to Gaara and found he was still alive and well before he began waking him up, and Haku came next to them. Gaara groaned slightly as he awoke to someone shaking him slightly, and he could hear Shukaku telling him he was lucky that his friend was here to save his. When Gaara heard that, he opened his eyes slightly and saw a masked and hooded figure there, but the eyes made him remember his brother, figure that disappeared 5 years ago. Good to see you haven't been slacking off, Gaara. Naruto stated, and that sealed it for Gaara as he knew who was in front of him by his voice and eyes. "Nah, Naruto?" he asked in shock, and the figure chuckled before removing his hood and mask, showing Naruto only older and slightly scarred. Gaara was in shock while Naruto grinned slightly. "Yeah, it's me. I'm glad that you decided to become the Kazekage and earn everyone's respect," he stated before he helped Gaara stand, and the two shook hands before they embraced as brothers. "It's good to see you, brother," Naruto stated, and Gaara nodded. "It's good to see you too. I don't suppose you could tell me what has happened since you've been gone?" Gaara asked as he wondered what had happened to his brother figure and what could have caused the scars, since the Kyuubi should have healed him. Wait, Gaara couldn't sense the Kyuubi within Naruto as he could before, but didn't know what it meant when they first met. "You no longer contain the Kyuubi?" he asked, and Naruto smiled and shook his head, shocking Gaara and Haku. "No, I haven't for a long time, and I wouldn't mind telling you at some point, but with the ninja heading this direction from Suna, I would assume that we are going to have company soon, and there are some people who don't need to know about my time away," he stated, while giving a look to Haku, stating she could be there, as he placed the mask back on his face and pulled his hood up and gave another look to Haku, who was in a battle kimono that was a deep blue with black designs of dragons and phoenixes on it, and had a mask modeled like Naruto's on her face with her hair done up in a ponytail. And she nodded before she moved, and he did a fire jutsu on Deidara's body and sealed the puppet body of Sasori into a scroll and stood by Gaara just as three, and a partial, teams from Konoha and a battalion from Suna came and landed around them and could tell they were confused about what happened. "It seems that your so-called rescue has come a bit late, Gaara," Naruto stated, with Haku giggling slightly and Gaara cracking a smile. "It would seem so, my friend," Gaara stated, surprising the arrivals since Gaara hardly called anyone his friend. "Stand down, all of you. They saved me from the Akatsuki and I will not have anyone attacking them," Gaara ordered, and the Suna nin stood down, with the Konoha ones doing so a minute or so later. "Please, I would love to catch up with you in Suna," Gaara offered, and Naruto stood there a moment before nodding while Kankuro spoke up. "Gaara, are you sure you can trust him? And what happened to the two Akatsuki members?" he asked, and Gaara looked to his brother before looking to Naruto, who held up a scroll in his hand and pointed to the little bit of ash and the remnants of the puppet that Sasori was in when Naruto threw the bomb at him. "You mean he took them both down?" he asked in shock, while everyone else widened their eyes in shock and surprise, while a certain banshee had her eyes narrowed on Haku as she felt she recognized her from somewhere. Gaara nodded. "Yes, and as for how I know I can trust him, he is a very good friend of mine and someone I would call brother," he stated, while most were surprised and a few were shocked since they knew of only one person Gaara would call brother. "I think you should introduce yourself, as it would allow us to talk face to face on the way back to Suna," Gaara stated, and Naruto chuckled slightly. "Very well, Gaara," Naruto stated as he pulled his hood back and then removed his mask, nearly giving everyone a heart attack as he looked like his father, while almost every girl, woman there had blushes on their faces. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and I am an assassin," Naruto stated as everyone's shock grew, and Naruto knew this was going to be a long day, and probably even more than that once word got back to Tsunade. Haku nodded before she moved, and Naruto did a fire jutsu on Deidara's body and sealed the puppet body of Sasori into a scroll and stood by Gaara just as three, and a partial, teams from Konoha and a battalion from Suna came and landed around them and could tell they were confused about what happened. "It seems that your so-called rescue has come a bit late, Gaara," Naruto stated, with Haku giggling slightly and Gaara cracking a smile. "It would seem so, my friend," Gaara stated, surprising the arrivals since Gaara hardly called anyone his friend. "Stand down, all of you. They saved me from the Akatsuki and I will not have anyone attacking them," Gaara ordered, and the Suna ninja stood down, with the Konoha ones doing so a minute or so later. Please, I would love to catch up with you in Suna. Gaara offered and Naruto stood there a moment before nodding while Kankuro spoke up. Gaara, are you sure you can trust him? And what happened to the two Akatsuki members? He asked and Gaara looked to his brother before looking to Naruto who held up a scroll in his hand and pointed to the little bit of ash and the remnants of the puppet that Sasori was in when Naruto threw the bomb at him. You mean he took them both down? He asked in shock while everyone else widened their eyes in shock and surprise, while a certain banshee had her eyes narrowed on Haku as she felt she recognized her from somewhere. Gaara nodded. Yes, and as for how I know I can trust him, he is a very good friend of mine and someone I would call brother. He stated while most were surprised and a few were shocked since they knew of only one person Gaara would call brother. I think you should introduce yourself as it would allow us to talk face to face on the way back to Suna. Gaara stated and Naruto chuckled slightly. Very well Gaara. Naruto stated as he pulled his hood back and then removed his mask, nearly giving everyone a heart attack as he looked like his father, while almost every woman there had blushes on their faces. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and I am an assassin. Naruto stated as everyone's shock grew and Naruto knew this was going to be a long day and probably even more than that once word got back to Tsunade. Now, everyone, but Gaara and Haku, stared in shock at Naruto being back and apparently older, scarred, and armed and possessing, from what many that could identify it, experience. Naruto gazed at the different reactions intently and read them. Most were surprised. Sakura was upset, Kakashi seemed irritated, the other rookies and Team Guy seemed happy he was back, and Ino, Tenten, Kurenai, and Tamari were all blushing at the sight of him, which didn't surprise him as many women over the centuries had hit on him and he had, on more than one occasion, graciously, educated, a few women that served under some of the courtesan madams that needed some form of aid in a few areas and had been graciously rewarded by said madams. Breaking from his thoughts he turned back to Gaara only to pause as a hand was on his shoulder. Naruto Uzumaki, you are to be taken back to Konoha to be tried for desertion. Kakashi stated, shocking everyone, and Naruto raised his hand at Haku to stop her before turning to Kakashi and, in a swift motion, he had twisted Kakashi's arm almost out of socket and slammed him onto the ground, shocking everyone watching, and Naruto held his arm in a grip. You would be wise not to try that again, Hitaki. I have more experience than you do and I have trained far longer now. He stated, getting surprised looks that he didn't call Kakashi his sensei and confused looks at his statements. Further, Gaara has the authority here since we are in Wind Country borders, so trying such a thing when he has ordered you to stand down would fall under treason and traitorous actions and risk the breaking of the treaty between Suna and Konoha. A treaty, I remind you, that I solidified when I defeated Gaara and made him see how precious people were better than being alone, despite you falsifying the report and saying Sasuke defeated him. Naruto stated, and Kakashi growled as he tried to get free while the others were shocked, and Sakura attempted to interfere and shout before a glare from Naruto shut her up as it was ice cold and deadly looking. I don't care what you say, I will never acknowledge nor believe you were able to defeat the Shukaku Jinchuriki. Kakashi stated as he couldn't believe that Naruto was holding him in place with such little effort as his arm felt like it was in a vice grip. He frowned as Naruto chuckled slightly. And that is why you are an idiot. You see, Pakun was there to witness it and didn't know you falsified the report just to get a shot at me and praise Sasuke. He stated with a smirk, and Kakashi felt a cold chill go down his spine. However, that changed some time ago when I summoned Gamakichi and then asked him to bring Pakun with him before I explained what you did and how things went down. Needless to say, Pakun was very unhappy with how you did things, especially when Gamakichi told him what Jiraiya told the toads you said about me when I disappeared, and guess what he did? Naruto stated with a bit of a grin, and Kakashi frowned as he looked at him. He broke the contract with you and made a new one with me while giving me permission to give the contract anyone that I deem worthy. Naruto stated, and Kakashi widened his eye along with everyone else while Kakashi struggled slightly before Naruto put his foot on his shoulder, pinning him. Oh yeah, I almost forgot that I owe you a couple of things. Naruto stated before he snapped Kakashi's thumb and wrist, making him groan and people to widen their eyes. That was for neglecting me as a student. Naruto stated before he then snapped Kakashi's elbow, getting a pained moan from him. That was from my father. He stated, making several people to widen their eyes, and then Naruto snapped Kakashi's arm at the shoulder, getting a pained scream from him. And that was from my mother, Kaka-kun. Naruto stated, and everyone widened their eyes while Kakashi stiffened, knowing only one person called him that and she was dead before Naruto could know about it, causing him to stare at Naruto in shock and Naruto to smirk. Yeah, I know all about them and they were very pissed at you when they found out, and my father denounced you as his student for it. He stated, making even more people widen their eyes before Naruto put his hand to Kakashi's head and it glowed gold for a minute before he removed his hand. What did you do to me? Kakashi asked fearfully, wondering if something was going to kill him or worse, and Naruto snorted before he released Kakashi and stood straight while dusting his hands and fixing his coat. I took all knowledge of my father's jutsu from you. You know, the one that you and he never finished, and then you made that cheap imitation known as the Chidori. Naruto stated, and Kakashi widened his eye at Naruto in rage. Hey, my father ordered me to as penance for you for not following his teachings, and he even gave me another order, but it is of no concern of yours unless you piss me off. He stated before pausing for a moment and turned to the others. Pardon my language, ladies. He stated, making them, minus Sakura, smile and nod in thanks before Naruto moved towards Gaara, but paused as he heard footsteps from behind him and turned to see Hinata there, and his eyes softened. He turned fully as she approached and stood in front of him, and he smiled as he cupped her cheek. You've grown beautiful, Imouto. He stated, shocking everyone before Hinata began crying and lunged into his chest in a hug. Nissan. She shouted as she buried her head into his chest, and he chuckled slightly as he stroked her back and hair while several were wondering what the hell was going on. It's alright, Imouto, it's really me. Naruto stated as he stroked her back before he kissed her forehead. We'll catch up later. He stated, and she nodded before he walked to Gaara and motioned towards Suna. Shall we? He asked, and Gaara nodded while Naruto bit his thumb and dabbed some blood on a seal at his sleeve, and a hawk appeared before Naruto scribbled something and tied it to the hawk's leg. Fly to Wave Country, my friend. Give my allies this message and wait there. Naruto stated in a language none of those around him understood before the hawk flew off. Naruto watched him fly above the clouds before turning to Gaara and walked beside his brother figure, with Haku following closely and Hinata walking beside him before the others began following them, while Sakura began working on Kakashi. Forgive me, Naruto, but I was under the impression that Hinata Hyuga had a crush on you. Gaara stated, and Naruto raised an eyebrow along with Hinata before they both turned to each other in confusion and then looked back at Gaara. That's nonsense, she is my Imouto. Has been since we were around 5, I don't know what gave you the idea that she liked me in that way. He stated, and Hinata nodded while everyone else deadpanned at them. The fact she would stutter and blush around you at every opportunity, that she followed you around constantly, and that she would get nervous around you every time. A few people stated, and Naruto and Hinata raised their eyebrows and blinked before Naruto made an "oh" face. That's right. You all wouldn't know the details of that, would you? He stated, causing many to frown. You guys, this is a big misunderstanding. She stuttered and blushed around me because she was afraid and embarrassed that I would tease her about the guy she liked, since I did it all the time. She was nervous all the time because I told her if she tried to do anything to embarrass me, then I would tell the guy she liked that she did in fact like him, and she followed me because she wanted to be sure there was someone to get the trustworthy Anbu and that there was a reliable witness in case any of the villagers were bastards to me. Oops. Sorry again, ladies. He explained and apologized with many widening their eyes in shock, while the women were again thankful to him. Naruto then turned to Gaara. So is this professional or personal discussion, Kazekage-sama? He asked, and many were surprised that he suddenly sounded and acted professionally, and Gaara raised his eyebrow in confusion. Why did you suddenly change how you addressed me? He asked, and the others listened in, and Naruto chuckled slightly. I have matured since I was gone. While I will treat you as my brother in a personal setting, in a professional setting I will give you the respect you have earned and deserved of your station. This didn't apply to Kakashi because he has no standing or station in my eyes and he was aggressive towards me for no reason. He stated, and many were impressed and surprised by his response, and Gaara nodded since he could understand and relate to that, as his siblings were the same way in switching between how they addressed him depending on professional or personal matters. I see. Well, this is personal as I wish to catch up with my oldest friend. Gaara stated, and everyone saw Naruto's stance and walk change to that of someone completely relaxed. I don't suppose you could begin telling me about your time away? Gaara asked, and Naruto smiled slightly as he thought back, feeling the desert air around him, the heat, the smell and feel of the sand, the harsh winds that did little to help the latter two items, and the ability for the sand to hide all forms of horror and blood. All of this reminded him of his time in the Holy Lands, and one memory struck him first. Flashback. Holy Lands. 10 years after Naruto's arrival. Naruto cut down another Ayubid soldier while Altair cut down another crusader. It was almost funny when he thought about it. The two factions hated each other, but when faced with one of the Brotherhood they would join forces against them until they were dead and then agree to separate on common ground and then fight later on. It was almost laughable that the desire to kill the assassins could make a truce between two warring factions. Breaking from his thoughts, Naruto blocked an overhead strike from a Templar before he rammed his hidden blade into his jugular before turning and throwing 3 knives into a few more soldiers' necks just before the rest took off running. Naruto recollected his blades and cleaned his weapons as Altair did the same. I still do not understand why Al-Mualim decided to send me on this mission as part of my penance. Altair complained, and Naruto sighed. Brother, you broke all 3 tenets of the creed in the span of 5 minutes. Did you truly believe that you were above such a crime? Naruto asked, and Altair opened his mouth to argue but found he had none, which made Naruto smile inwardly, as this was their second trip to Jerusalem in Altair's mission of redemption after the fiasco at Solomon's Temple. Exactly. You let your fame, prestige, and glory go to your head and endangered the lives of your brothers simply because you became arrogant in your abilities and beliefs that you were unmatched. That gave Robert de Sable the opening he needed to exploit and led to the death of Malik's brother. Naruto stated, and Altair lowered his head in thought, and Naruto sighed. You never even bothered to apologize to Malik for what happened. You need to learn a lesson, Altair. That rank means nothing in life, as a single stroke of a blade can undo all of that and make you no better than a commoner that has never even known something such as honor. Naruto continued, and Altair sighed and lowered his head at Naruto. The only man that was ever honest with him about everything, still stood up for him after Solomon's Temple, was the one who convinced Al-Mualim to give him his second chance and allow Naruto to come with him. You are right, Naruto. I was headstrong and prideful in my gaining such a high rank at such a young age. I have dishonored many in my actions, and it was even worse as I had led Sable to our door while also costing Malik much in the process. I have much to answer for, and I suppose I just needed someone to confront me about it as an equal to make me see it. Altair stated as he walked beside Naruto since their horses had run off during the fighting. Naruto nodded. There is still plenty of time for you to grow and learn, brother. A child is the easiest to teach, but a man knows what to do with what he learns. Naruto stated, and Altair nodded. While you cannot begin to repay Malik for his loss, you can show that you are not the same man that was responsible for it and that you are truly regretful for what you did. Naruto stated as Altair nodded to his words in thanks. Now come, we should try to make it to the next village before more patrols come. We could handle them, but that wouldn't exactly be stealthy now, would it? Naruto stated, and Altair cracked a small smile before the two began moving faster towards Jerusalem, with Altair thinking about how he would apologize to Malik. Even if he wouldn't accept it, Altair had to at least let him know that he was indeed sorry for it. Flashback end. Naruto broke from his thoughts as he noticed Gaara looking at him, and Naruto smiled slightly. Sorry, I got lost in my memories for a moment there. Naruto stated as he remembered his time with Altair, as he was actually set to be promoted before him, but Naruto had shocked the Brotherhood, and his internal guests, and made history by turning down the advancement and stating he still had much to learn and more things to experience before he was ready to take the next rank. As to your question, I would be glad to tell you, but not in front of people I do not trust. Naruto stated, making a few people raise their eyebrows in curiosity. I can promise you, Naruto, my people won't, Gaara began to say before Naruto shook his head at him, stopping him. I do not doubt your people, Gaara, but there is a lot to say and tell, and not everyone needs to hear it, and the statement was more towards most of the Konoha shinobi behind me. He stated, shocking everyone with his statement, and Gaara frowned. I see. I thought they were your friends and allies, but I suppose seeing as you didn't have the defenses I had, that you may not be as trusting of some. Gaara stated, making a few of his people widen their eyes as they knew what Gaara was referring to. Naruto scoffed slightly. Out of everyone behind me from Konoha, and those still in Konoha, the only ones that I would trust are Hinata, Shino, Iruka, Konohamaru, Udon, Moegi, Choji, Shikamaru, Shizune, Yugao, and Team Guy, and I can tolerate Jiraiya and Tsunade till I confirm some things. Everyone else is not on my friendly list, since all they did was belittle me, hunt me, beat me, starve me, attempt to kill me, denounce my dream, mock my goals, mock my ideals, or state that I was lying about my achievements, since they were adamant in believing Sasuke had actually been the one to achieve them when everyone knew he didn't. While Neji was among them, that changed after I beat some sense into him. Neji absent-mindedly rubbed his jaw as he remembered that left hook that Naruto gave him in the Chunin exams. So no, none of those people are on my list of people I trust, and the list is actually much shorter than it was before I left, since I have little doubt the council has been bragging about why they hated and abused me to people, and thus everyone behind me knows why I was hated and shunned, though it's doubtful that they revealed who my parents were, since that would turn a large portion of the village against them for acting as they did. Not that it matters anyway, since I have little to no intention of ever setting foot in that village so long as I live if I can help it, and I have no problems with killing or breaking anyone who tries to make me go back. Naruto stated, making everyone become shocked, while a few of the Konoha shinobi looked down in shame, and Gaara frowned before nodding. I see. I won't break the alliance treaty unless you ask me to, since, as you correctly stated, you are the sole reason we tried to renew the treaty, and I wish you to know that I, and anyone willing to follow me, will support and help you no matter what, and you will always be welcome in Suna so long as I am Kage. Gaara stated, making his people shocked, though they nodded, and made the Konoha nin pale slightly and sweat, since if Suna left, then wave, snow, and waterfall may leave too. Naruto smiled at his friend. Thank you, Gaara. I don't wish for you to break the treaty just yet, since there are at least 6 people in Konoha that I care about and wouldn't want them harmed should another village get bold and try to sack the village. He stated before noticing that a few girls were looking at Haku and so were some males, and Gaara flicked his eyes over before turning back to him. She is an ally and apprentice of mine that I met way back and recently found again, and I must warn you that I will break anyone who attempts to harm her, if she doesn't do so herself. He stated, and Gaara nodded. I understand. Is why you called yourself an assassin a question that can be asked now? Gaara asked while both he and Naruto knew a certain old woman was staring at Naruto for quite some time. Naruto smiled. It's because I was trained by several master assassins and trained quite a few myself over the years. I know many methods of combat, weapon styles, taijutsu styles, and much more have been added to my list of skills, and I have earned every bit of it. He stated while signing to Gaara in Anbu code. QB is not to be brought up now. Gaara gave a nod to him, making it seem like he was nodding to the answer. However, Tamari saw it and frowned before she decided to ask about it later. I see. Well, I am glad that you have only grown in your time away. However, I trust you know that Tsunade-sama will need to be informed of this development. Gaara stated, then asked, and Naruto nodded his head since it would look bad on Gaara's part if he didn't report this. I understand, which is why I'll be sending my own letter to her when you send yours, as I know she'll probably try to come here to convince me to go back to the village. He stated as he kept walking with Gaara before he thought for a moment. Hey Kankuro. Naruto called and said, middle child of the Subaku children, look to him. Once I collect the bounty on Sasori, you can have his puppet body to use. He stated, getting a raised eyebrow from Kankuro, and Naruto chuckled. He apparently turned his body into a living puppet, so there is no telling the different secrets he attached to his body and what may benefit Suna with their puppetry. He stated, and Kankuro widened his eyes before smirking. Sweet. Thanks, kid. He stated, causing Naruto to snort in laughter, making people raise an eyebrow in confusion. What was so funny, Naruto? Gaara asked with confusion clear on his face, and Naruto chuckled lightly as if there was some great joke going on that they didn't know about. I'll tell you back in Suna, though you will probably have a laugh afterwards. Naruto stated before he turned to the older woman of the Suna Nin. If you try something in retaliation for what I did to your relative, then I will not hesitate to kill you. He had no respect for the dead since I could sense another puppet within him, and I think it was someone from Suna. Naruto warned as his Uzumaki sensor abilities let him know that she felt sadness and pain from knowing Sasori was dead. The woman widened her eyes slightly before sighing and nodding, causing Naruto to smile in appreciation before Gaara turned to Hinata. If you don't mind me asking, how did you all get here so quickly? He asked curiously, and Hinata smiled as she looked to Naruto, then to Gaara. We came at our top speed when we heard you were in danger, since we knew you were Naruto Nissan's friend and brother. Though, a certain Banshee and Cyclops wanted to take our time since there was no real rush. Hinata stated as Naruto patted her head slightly, making her pout a little before they all glared slightly at Sakura and Kakashi, who humped and seemed uncaring. Naruto chuckled at his Imouto pouting before he and the others focused on heading to Suna. Well, except for females, as they were thinking about Naruto as they walked. Naruto then paused and thought a moment. Angel-chan, are you doing alright? This is your first time in this type of terrain and heat. Naruto asked Haku as he didn't wish to use her name, especially in front of Sakura and Kakashi. Haku smiled behind her mask and nodded her head. Yes, mentor. I am alright. Your lessons on some items regarding this type of terrain are being used the best of my ability right now. She stated as he had explained to her that she should call him mentor in public, as master would give people like Sakura or Jiraiya the wrong impression, or would it be the right one? Naruto smiled and nodded. Good, the last thing I want is for my student to pass out from heat exhaustion. he stated with a smile that made some of the girls blush and many to be surprised. He had a student before he remembered something. Ah, and I believe I have a weapon picked out for you when we arrive at Suna since it should fit your fighting style. Naruto stated and Haku nodded while a few became interested in what kind of teacher Naruto was and Tenten was curious in the weapon that he felt the mystery girl could use. Naruto then noticed Gaara looking at him with a raised eyebrow. Mentor is half of a title I gained while I was away. The people who gave it to me considered it an immense honor and station since the ones who possessed it were responsible for the very teachings and foundations of the assassins that I both trained under, trained with. Naruto explained and Gaara nodded while many were curious in his abilities since the way he spoke made it seem that Angel wasn't his first student and were skeptical since he had only been gone 5 years, so how many people could he have possibly trained? However, any further discussions were cut short as Suna came into view in the distance. Konoha Hokage Tower. An hour later. Tsunade sighed as she sat in the office and stared out the window. It had been 5 years since Naruto had vanished and it had nearly broken her, which she channeled into nearly breaking Kakashi with Jiraiya's and Shizune's help, as she realized she cared for him, but not as she did for anyone else. She cared for him more than Nawaki or Dan, but she didn't know to what extent other than her heart hurt when she found out he was gone. Kakashi had been demoted to Chunin and sent on only D ranks, except the Gaara incident because Itachi might be there. And he wasn't the only one that suffered either. Sakura had been rejected as her apprentice, though that didn't stop the brat from being able to learn medical jutsu and make a much weaker version of Tsunade's strength technique. There had been a series of executions after she told the Fire Daimyo about Naruto and what happened to him since the current Fire Daimyo was friends with Minato and Kushina. The council had been stripped bare of any power they had and the Fire Daimyo restored the laws to what they should have been and not what the council wanted, and the village was on notice that they were a hair's breadth away from being liquidated if anything else happened. Though they had one way to get back. If they could get a prominent individual or a village to vouch for them, then he would increase the budget and give them a bit of breathing room. As of yet, none had done so. Beyond punishments, there had been some issues as Iruka had thrown himself into training Konohamaru and his friends alongside Ebisu, and making sport of breaking anyone who dared to speak ill of Naruto. Hinata had attacked anyone that insulted him with Neji, Lee, and Tenten helping. Tenten, Ino, Moegi, and surprisingly Hanabi had been slightly depressed since he vanished as they apparently had gained a bit of a crush on the blonde. The Spring Daimyo, Gaara, the Cage of Waterfall, and Wave Country almost broke their treaties and everything when they learned Naruto's own sensei had abandoned him to go after a traitor instead, and it reflected poorly on Konoha, and it was only the Fire Daimyo straightening out Konoha that they didn't break the treaties. Ayame Ichiraku and, surprisingly, Hana Inuzuka had been wrecks as they were actually going to ask Naruto on a date after the mission. Enko had been somewhat depressed since she felt she lost the one person who would understand her in the village. Yugao had been saddened since she had watched over the boy when he was younger and had gotten somewhat attached to him and did find him cute. Her thoughts were broken as Shizune came in with a letter and was then confused as an eagle tapped on her window. She got up and took the letter from the eagle before it flew away, and she looked at the letters and saw one was from Suna and the other had a strange triangle on it before she began reading the letter that Shizune had before her eyes widened as tears began going down her face. Lady Tsunade. Shizune asked concerned before she saw the beaming smile on her master's face before Tsunade read the letter out loud to her. Dear Hokage-sama, I am pleased to inform you that my rescue was successful, but not in the way you are thinking. A certain someone interfered on my behalf and killed the 2 Akatsuki members that attacked me. He is someone that I call brother and is the reason why our 2 villages has an alliance in the first place. He has sent you a letter via one of his own birds and has requested that you read it before you make any decisions since he does not wish to return to Konoha presently and believes you will come to talk him into it. Sincerely, Gaara Subaku, the Cage of Suna. Tsunade smiled as Shizune did as well with tears going down her face before Tsunade took the letter from Naruto and read it out loud. Hokage-sama, sorry if you wanted me to call you Ba-chan, but I can't for reasons I may tell you later. I am writing this letter to inform you that I will be staying in Suna for the next week and a half to catch up with Gaara, but I have no intentions of returning to Konoha at this time. However, should you, Ero Sanin, and anyone else trustworthy wish to come and try and convince me, then I will not mind, but you must have the Fire Daimyo take over in your absence or you risk Danzo and the other bastards, pardon my language, trying to usurp you again. I heard from my sources that he cleaned up some things, though it should have been you to do it, and I am not even going to consider going to Konoha if they have had a chance to screw me over again. Again, I apologize for my language. You have a week and a half to get the Fire Daimyo to take control of the village and get to Suna, or I will leave and you will be hard-pressed to find me again without me wishing you to do so. I am sorry if this is not the same Naruto you remember, but much has happened while I was away and this letter would be hundreds of pages long if I were to tell you it all. I will not tell you everything should you come, but I will tell you some things about what has happened about my life since I've been gone. Sincerely, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. P.S. Yes, I know who my parents are and I'm not mad at you or Ero Sanin for not telling me, but you do have a few things to answer for. She read and with some tears still falling before she looked to Shizune. Shizune, get me Jiraiya, Yugao, and Anko, then send a message to the Fire Daimyo telling him that he is needed inside the village immediately to discuss a new development on our search. Tsunade ordered and Shizune happily nodded and went to do as she was told. Tsunade sat back in her chair with a small smile on her face. Naruto, I swear we'll make it up to you. She thought as she waited a few minutes before the others came in and they all stood before her with confused and worried expressions since they could see she had been crying. Good, you're all here. I need you all ready to go to Suna as soon as the Fire Daimyo gets here. She stated and they frowned in confusion before Jiraiya spoke. Tsunade, why are we going to Suna and why do we need to wait for the Fire Daimyo? He asked and the others nodded before noticing Shizune and Tsunade smiling happily with glint in their eyes that they hadn't seen in years. We are waiting for the Fire Daimyo as we are going to ensure the councils do not try anything while we are gone. She explained, making them nod their heads before she had a beaming smile. The reason we are going to Suna is because a certain someone has reappeared after being gone for 5 years. She stated, making their eyes widen before Tsunade threw a book just past Jiraiya's head when he made a move for the window. Don't even think about it, Jiraiya. I want to see him soon too, which is why the minute the Fire Daimyo is here and we give him the situation, you're calling the toads to get us there since he's only staying there for a week and a half before he says he'll leave. We have to go since he is letting us see him as he wants nothing to do with Konoha at the moment. But he wants some answers on a few things since he knows who his parents are. She stated and Jiraiya froze in shock before nodding with a serious look on his face even as tears went down his face in happiness while the others reciprocated it even if Anko only had one lone tear down her cheek. I want you all ready to go at a moment's notice as we'll be leaving the moment the Fire Daimyo has been informed of what is going on. She ordered and they nodded eagerly before they all left to ensure they were ready with Jiraiya giving her a look stating he promised to wait. At Suna, a few hours later, Naruto stood with Haku in one of the training fields as Gaara had to play politician with the council and ensure no one was encroaching on his borders once word got out that he was captured and he had to get the funds together to pay Naruto for the 2 kills since he doubted Iwa would pay for Deidara. As Naruto stood there, he was fully aware of some audience members and looked at Haku, Alright Angel-chan, I believe I have a weapon that will suit you and your former teacher's legacy for you, and I expect you to treat what I am about to give with respect. He stated, and Haku nodded her head in understanding, as the weapon must be important to him and she would treasure it, both because it was important to him and because he was giving it to her. Good. He stated before he produced the weapon. It was a sword that was shorter than a katana and was curved more than one. The pommel was a rolled up ball of wood and had two metal pieces coming out for a hand guard. The blade had designs and words on it that she didn't recognize, and the top of the blade to about an inch down was thicker than the rest of the blade. This is a killage, specifically one that belonged to a dear friend of mine named Yusuf who died in combat. The blade is fast, light, lethal, and is just as good at cutting as the katana. The curve gives it good hacking and slashing power, the weighted tip gives it more cutting power, and the handle is stylized to let it go well in the hand and let a person use it effectively. It should fit your natural grace and speed perfectly. I want you to treasure this blade, Angel-chan, as not only did it belong to Yusuf, but it was then taken up by a student and brother of mine named Ezio, and he treated it with the respect it deserved, and I expect you to do the same. Naruto stated, and Haku nodded before carefully taking the blade and inspecting it in her hands before she placed it in the sash of her battle kimono and bowed to Naruto. I promise I will respect it and treasure it, mentor. She stated, and he smiled before he began affectionately rubbing her face over mask, making her blush under her mask before she began tracing his scars on his face. Naruto-kun, will you tell me about how you got hurt and why you hide yourself from me and Nami-chan? She asked, as Naruto didn't want anyone else knowing about Tsunami and them just yet, and Naruto sighed while sensing the audience was confused by her words. It's not that I don't want to, it's that I know you will not like what you see. He stated, and could sense Haku's confusion. Where I was, it wasn't a peaceful place most of the time, and even my healing abilities have their limitations. He stated, and Haku began to understand. Wherever Naruto had gone was a place of fighting, and he had used his healing powers too much at times and thus had the marks to show it. If you want to see, then I will oblige, just remember that I only didn't want to show you yet because I knew it would hurt you. He stated, and she nodded before Naruto waved to the others, and he and Haku vanished from view and reappeared in the hotel room Gaara had set up for them. Naruto sighed slightly as he removed his coat and armor pieces before doing so with the weapons he had on him, and turned his back to Haku before he removed his shirt and heard Haku gasp. Haku could only watch in partial horror and sympathy as she saw Naruto's back covered in different scars of cuts, burns, bullet wounds, as Naruto showed her what one of his guns did to a target, and more, and the same was for his chest and arms, and she could assume his legs as well. She tentatively walked up and traced his scars with her fingers, easily being able to tell that these would have crippled if not killed a lesser man, as he had bullet marks through where a kidney, his liver, and left ventricle would be. His right shoulder sported a large scar that showed he took some form of weapon down on and into his right shoulder, to the point the arm would be dangling uselessly next to him if gravity didn't make it detach itself from his body from the lack of connective tissue. The left arm had scars of a few places that led her to believe some shrapnel or a compound fracture broke the skin. As her fingers went over his ribs, she could feel masses on the bone from where they had broken and healed more than once. Parts showed that they were most likely due to torture from the size of the wounds and their positioning, and she could only imagine the internal trauma he must have. Haku instinctively hugged him as tears came down her face, while a part of her noted how warm he was, as she could only imagine the wounds he had taken that healed, and Naruto returned the hug and stroked her back. How could you have taken all of this in only 5 years? She asked through her light sobs, and Naruto sighed as he sat on the bed and pulled her to his lap. When I disappeared, I met 2 beings that helped me unlock an old bloodline that stops me from aging, and I won't die except being killed. Everyone here only experienced 5 years, I experienced 858 years. For over 8 centuries I fought and bled to protect others in a world that wasn't even my own, and some of these scars are doubles that were reopened from another enemy. He stated, and she looked up at him with wide eyes as he removed her mask. That's why I told you and Nami-chan that I had to tell you things before this could go anywhere. I'm almost 900 years old and I wanted you guys to know that I am me, but I am not a child anymore either. It is also possible for me to pass my bloodline to any loves I gain, but I want anyone I am with to make that decision for themselves, since they will have to accept that others they know will age and wither away while we stay. He stated, and Haku smiled and hugged him tighter as more tears came from her eyes. I will stay with you forever, Naruto-kun, both as your tool and maybe one day your love too. She stated with a blush, and Naruto smiled and kissed her lightly on the lips before cupping her cheek lovingly. Thank you, Haku-chan. I do care about you, but I don't know if it is love yet, and I refuse to say it if I don't know I mean it. He stated, and Haku nodded happily while snuggling into his chest, already deciding he wasn't sleeping in a shirt again if she could help it. Their thoughts were then broken by a knock at the door. Naruto-kun, Gaara is ready to see you. They heard Tamari say through the door, and both blinked before looking at each other and smirking, since it appeared that Tamari had a bit of a crush on Naruto, if it wasn't something more, since she hadn't called him kun before. Thank you, Tamari-chan, I'll be there shortly. He stated. She gave a confirmation before he felt her move away from the door and go downstairs, where she waited in the lobby. Naruto turned back to Haku and kissed her head. Shall we, Angel-chan? He asked, and she nodded before he set her down and donned his clothes again while she put her mask back on before they went downstairs and walked with Tamari to the cage tower. So how have you been, Tamari-chan? He asked to begin conversation, and she blushed lightly at the chan and smiled. I am well, Naruto-kun, and thank you for not insinuating that I am dating Shikamaru. She stated with the blush still present, and Naruto raised an eyebrow at her. Why would I? Just because the two of you fought in the Chunin exams and are both strategists doesn't mean that you two are interested in the other. He stated with her smiling slightly, and it only increased when he added, that would be like saying you and I are dating just because we both have blonde hair and have a wind affinity. He stated, and she giggled with a nod. True, but I didn't know you had a wind affinity. She stated with some curiosity in her voice, and Naruto chuckled. It is my primary affinity, but I have others as well and plenty of experience in it. Perhaps I could show you how to advance your own sometime. He stated, and Tamari grew curious while having a smile on her face. Perhaps you could. She stated before they entered the tower and went to Gaara's office and sat in the chair across from him, and Haku sat beside Naruto while Tamari stood by Gaara. Naruto gazed around the room, pausing over each ninja hidden in the shadows and then turning to Gaara before his hand glowed and a bubble formed over them, making his three friends and the onlookers widen their eyes before Naruto turned to Gaara. I don't want unnecessary people to hear or try to read our lips while we talk. He stated, and the three nodded before Naruto turned to Haku and she removed her mask. This is my apprentice, and one of my two girlfriends, Haku. Naruto stated, and Gaara blinked slightly while Tamari did as well. Forgive me, Naruto, but is this the same Haku you told me was dead? Gaara stated while Tamari was focusing on the part about two girlfriends. Naruto surprised them both by nodding. Yes, due to reasons that I will explain. I was able to bring her back and put her at the appropriate age for if she hadn't died, and began training her before she and a woman named Tsunami, who was the daughter of my team's client when we went to Wave, were then told by me that due to my being the only known surviving member of two clans, and a promise to my mother, that I couldn't possibly would take more than one girl as my wife, but only if they could accept that. I may take after my Sanin sensei in a way, but I only do it in a way that still respects women and would never ask them to do something they aren't comfortable with. Naruto stated as he saw Tamari twitch slightly before he explained his reason for possibly taking more than one wife, and he vaguely heard Gaara ask about his mother. Kushina Uzumaki, the people that sent me away for a time made it so I could talk and train under both her and my father, Minato Namikaze, along with Kyubi until the seal eventually finished them off, and the promise to her was that I would give her lots of grandkids. He stated, making the two widen their eyes while Haku and Tamari blushed at the thought of having his kids, and Gaara gained a smile. I see, Naruto, I would like to propose a marriage contract between you and my sister. He stated, getting wide eyes from all three. Before you begin objecting, I am not doing this simply for political reasons. Tamari has had a bit of a crush on you since we last saw you, and I know she wouldn't mind getting a shot at being with you, and there is also the fact you are the only man that I know I could definitely trust to care, protect, and treasure her like she deserves. Gaara stated, and Naruto sighed before he closed his eyes in thought while Haku seemed relaxed somewhat and Tamari was blushing and hopeful. After a minute or so, Naruto opened his eyes and looked to his brother figure. I will accept on 3 conditions. He stated, and the three began listening closely as Gaara motioned for him to speak. First, this is to be left open and can be fulfilled down the road, as I would like to get to know Tamari better and actually be able to say that I love her truthfully and not just say it because I feel like I should. He stated, and both Gaara and Tamari nodded, while both Tamari and Haku had smiles on their faces at Naruto being caring. Second, if Tamari changes her mind or we both mutually decide it will not work, then this contract is null and void with no drawbacks to either party, as I refuse to make Tamari marry me if she decides that she is not in love with me and or gains feelings for another. Again Gaara nodded and the two females smiled, only Gaara joined them this time. And third, Tamari is under no obligation to live with me even if the contract is fulfilled. I do not know where I will live, but if she wishes to stay in Suna and I cannot commit to doing so, then she is free to stay and we will work it out from there. He finished and Gaara smiled a real smile and nodded while Tamari was mentally jumping for joy. That is more than acceptable, Naruto, and I will gladly accept those terms. He stated, and Naruto smiled before standing and approaching Tamari before he kissed her cheek, making her brick red, before he cupped her cheek lightly and she leaned into it. I hope we get along well, Mari-chan. He stated, and she blushed at the nickname before she smiled and nodded her head before Naruto returned to his seat and gave Haku a kiss too after she gave a light pout, so on to other things. He stated, getting back into being serious, and Gaara nodded. Now, I would prefer we wait on the detailed explanation for if Tsunade gets here, as she will want me to give her the details as well, and I don't plan on doing so in front of those idiots on the council, since they would just call for me to be executed, used as breeding stock, or reveal the secrets behind my abilities and skills, since I have had nothing but time to train them, and then possibly use said secrets to kill me. If she is not here, then I will make sure to visit or have you visit and give you a detailed explanation. He stated, and Gaara nodded while Tamari and Haku frowned at the mention of the fools on the council in Konoha, though the ones in the other villages weren't usually any better. That is understandable, Naruto. I can settle for some simple information on your time away and we can get into specifics at a later time. Gaara stated, and Naruto nodded before he ran a hand through his hair with Gaara and Tamari noticing the scar on his ring finger. Well, I guess I'll explain a few things. First, our world is not the only one, as there are other worlds that exist, and I was sent to another one both to train and to kill an individual of great power while also gaining my own powers from items the beings who called me away left behind. I don't know how many worlds there are or how many different ones there are. All I know is that I went to one where time passed much faster than here. He stated, and Gaara and Tamari widened their eyes. I was in that world for 858 years, and throughout that time I trained, fought, waged war, recruited, taught, mentored, killed, assassinated, sailed, broke laws, freed people, and much more as I waited till I could return. Throughout all of this, I didn't age past 18 due to an old bloodline being unlocked that stops my aging after I turned 18. He informed as he saw Gaara relax in his chair processing everything while Tamari seemed to be blushing slightly and he wondered if she had a thing for older men. I can also pass this on to any woman I have, which is why I wanted Tamari to have an out since she would end up watching as you and Konkuro age and die while she, myself, and anyone else I ended up with remained. He stated and Tamari smiled and kissed his cheek before she took a chair and sat beside him with her head on his shoulder and Haku did the same while Gaara nodded and motioned for him to continue. So years passed, I learned new skills, mastered new weapons, gained new abilities through training and from certain objects that I drained of their powers, and learned a great many things. Naruto stated as Gaara nodded and was intrigued by his new abilities. I take it that also had to do with the strange language you used earlier with your bird summon. Gaara asked and Naruto nodded with a smile. The world I went to had many countries and around 90% of them had a different language or form of an existing language to learn, thus I speak several languages fluently including this one since in their world they had a country called Japan that had our language under the name of Japanese, so I didn't get rusty with this one while I was away thankfully. The language I used for my bird was one called Italian. Naruto informed and the three people widened their eyes slightly since, while they had a couple dozen countries, they all spoke the same language and to have such diversity in the languages could only mean one thing. This world, it was divided even more than this one is, wasn't it? He asked and Naruto nodded his head slightly. Much more than you think. Dozens of religions, different economies, ethnicities or races which are varying physical attributes that distinguish them from group to group, different ways of fighting, different customs, different militaries, and the list just continues on and on. Naruto stated as they had many encounters both friendly and enemy about many of those items and had consequently had wars and bouts of combat involving those different issues, hundreds of wars and battles because of the differences between people. Someone thinks their religion is better and that they need to kill those who don't believe in it. Others declare war on another group because of their grandmother's grandfather's grandfather killed someone else's mother's father's great-uncle's cousin in a duel of honor. Others think their race was better and declared war on another. Others think that one country represents everything they hate and began their own form of war, and it goes on and on with the foolishness that the people had. A few I could understand, such as the family one, but once there were over 100 deaths on both sides, then it is time to just let it go before you lose more family. I mean, how much blood has to be spilled before the honor has been regained? Naruto stated absent-mindedly as he recalled a time in Africa when he learned the British, French, and Spanish were taking slaves from there and went down there before he created a brotherhood there to stop or at least slow the flow of slaves leaving there and had educated his southern brethren on many things and showed that traditions were great, but not if they became outdated with the times, and the brotherhood began flourishing there. Hell, centuries later and there were members helping a preacher named Sam Childers, nicknamed the Machine Gun Preacher, free the children soldiers of the Sudan and were helping to teach some of the children that wanted to learn to fight to protect the other kids and expanded the brotherhood even farther. What slaves didn't get saved were subsequently slowly freed by the Haitian Brotherhood and then more by Connor Kenway and his group when they expanded to the southern part of what is now the United States. Naruto then smirked as he remembered the Civil War and him helping a man named Newton Knight create what they called the Free State of Jones, and Naruto used his connections to President Abraham Lincoln, who was an assassin supporter, and General Ulysses S. Grant, who was an assassin himself, as was General Robert E. Lee, which was also why they kept going to a stalemate during the war and exaggerated their losses to try and flush out the Templars that wanted to replace them. To get Newton some rifles, 2 cannons, and a large amount of ammo to help hold the line and then establish their own form of martial law after the war, with Grant granting them control over the state, and they made sure no Jim Crow laws, discrimination, or segregation existed in Mississippi, and broke anyone that attempted to change that, and even trained Newton, his best friend Abraham, and their kids in the assassin ways, and they carried on the tradition later on when Naruto had to go when word spread about possible trouble brewing in Cuba, and then joined Teddy Roosevelt at San Juan Hill. Things just spiraled from there as he went to Europe both times. A world war started and was part of the reason that Germany suffered setbacks each war, and it continued on with the Cold War, with Naruto using the different assassin brotherhoods to ensure that no one really won the Cold War. He still laughed whenever he and his brothers and sisters took out CIA and KGB agents when they were the best and greatest their agencies had to offer. Naruto broke from his musings at hearing Gaara's voice. "How strong are you now, Naruto?" Gaara asked as he saw his brother figure becoming lost in memories and didn't want him to get too lost. Naruto smirked slightly. "Above Cage easily. I've had nothing but time to train and put into practice anything I learned and came up with," Naruto stated honestly, and Gaara nodded since Naruto had no boastfulness in him as he spoke, and Naruto wasn't one to make a claim like that without being able to back it up, since, even in his youth, Naruto never claimed to be Cage level. "So Gaara, tell me about yourself and what has been going on. From what I understand and sensed, you have a few fans in the village," Naruto stated, and Gaara's cheeks actually reddened slightly while Temari giggled at her brother's expense before they began just chatting and catching up just like old friends were meant to. 5 days later, Naruto stood in a training ground and watched as Haku sparred against a clone with her new sword, though anyone watching, which were quite a few people, could tell the clone was holding back but couldn't tell how much, as the clone would take the opportunity to lightly slap Haku whenever she left an opening with his training sword. He had been doing this each day after he got to catch up with Gaara, and since then had only spoken to the Suna ninja, Haku, and Hinata, since the only other Konoha ninja that wanted to talk to Naruto were the ones he made clear were not on his trusted list. Haku had been coming along decently in using her sword, but wasn't near where Naruto wanted her at. However, she had just started learning to use it, so he wasn't going to give her a hard time about it. His thoughts were broken as he sensed some chakra levels approaching, with one very large and animalistic feeling one. He smirked before whistling, and Haku immediately stopped and moved by him with her sword put away before they began walking to the entrance to Suna, with Naruto having his hood up and his mask on, and caught up to Gaara a few minutes later when Naruto sent a brief pulse of chakra through a seal he connected to Gaara so they could let the other know about danger or that the other needed their attention. As they arrived at the entrance, it only took about 20 seconds before Gamabunta landed with Tsunade, Shizune, Yugao, Anko, and Jiraiya standing on his head, causing a large amount of dust before Temari blew it away with her fan, and the riders jumped down and looked around. "Kage-sama, I hope I am not too late," Tsunade stated, and Gaara smirked before turning to Naruto, who removed his hood and then pulled his mask off, nearly giving Yugao, Tsunade, and Jiraiya a heart attack since, except for the scars, he looked like a combination of Minato and Kushina, and Naruto smiled at them. "Hello Tsunade-sama, Yugao-san, Anko-san, Shizune-chan, Ero-sanin," he stated, and Jiraiya didn't face fault since he missed the kid too much, though he wasn't sure he could call Naruto that anymore. Tsunade, Yugao, Anko, and Shizune were blushing slightly at his mature looks, while they also wondered why the hell he had scars. Naruto then jumped to Gamabunta. "Hey boss Bunta, how are Gamakichi and the others doing?" Naruto asked with a grin, and Gamabunta chuckled. "They're doing fine, kid, though from what Fukasaku and Shima told me, I can't rightfully call you that anymore," Gamabunta stated, as Naruto had not only called Gamakichi over the years but had called the other toads to learn about them, and then had called Fukasaku and Shima, aka Pa and Ma Toad, and learned to use Sage Mode from them, which only enhanced his sensor abilities and gave him another taijutsu, and the title of Sage gave him even more respect, fear from the Templars and assassins. Naturally, he told them not to tell Jiraiya anything other than he was alive and couldn't be reversed summoned for some reason, which was really due to he didn't want to try crossing worlds by summoning instead of however Minerva and Saturn did it. Naruto chuckled, "Yeah, I'll explain it later over a drink since I have some things for you to try that I think you may enjoy," he stated, and Gamabunta grinned and nodded before Naruto jumped off and waved to Bunta. Naruto cracked his neck before he turned to Jiraiya and frowned before he gave a very sickly sweet smile to him that made him shiver. "Oh, Jiraiya, I have a message from my mother that she wanted me to deliver you," he stated, and the new arrivals were confused and Jiraiya shivered slightly for some reason. What message is that?" he asked with some fear, and it was not alleviated as Naruto approached him with the same smile on his face. "She said," and I quote. He stated before taking a deep breath before he slammed his foot into Jiraiya's chin and sent him hurtling into the air near the clouds. "That's for only teaching my Sochi how to summon and barely doing the Rasengan, you perverted bastard," Naruto yelled at Jiraiya before taking a step back as said Toad Sage came plummeting back to the ground, causing a crater in which he was twitching slightly, and Naruto leaned down to look at him. "You should be glad I took my mother's advice over my father's. He wanted me to shove a giant Rasengan up your," he stated before pausing and turning to the women. "Pardon my language, ladies," he stated before turning back to Jiraiya. "My parents also stated that if I ever have kids and you're still around and you pull this crap again, then you're going to have a very unhappy afterlife. Also, be glad that I changed where I was supposed to kick you, since I assume you can guess where my mother wanted me to kick, knowing it would do the most damage and get the point across better," Naruto stated before grabbing him and dragged him over to Tsunade while Gamabunta was laughing his off before he waved to Naruto and poofed back home, and Gaara was discreetly squeezing his legs together since he could imagine where a mother fueled with feminine and motherly fury would want to kick with the amount of strength Naruto had. Naruto released Jiraiya and Tsunade made it so he could at least walk while Naruto went over and spoke to Gaara and Haku before he caught a kunai in his hand and threw it back before disappearing. Anko, after seeing how his body showed in his clothes, wanted to see if he really trained and threw a kunai at him, only to be shocked as he caught and threw back at her faster than she could see and felt a cut form on her cheek before hot breath hit her neck. "I would appreciate you not trying that again, Anko-chan. I had to restrain myself from possibly killing you since I aim to kill when I throw a weapon," he stated before he licked her cheek where her cut was, and she shivered slightly under his breath and licked before she felt him speak again. "You taste sweet, Anko-chan," he stated huskily in her ear, making her blush and shiver again before he was back by Gaara again talking to him about something while the new arrivals were astounded with the speed. After a minute or so of talking, Naruto turned back towards them. "Come on, we'll discuss more in the tower," Naruto stated as he walked with Gaara, Temari, and Haku while the 5 arrivals followed quickly while Naruto was planning some conditions that were to be met if Tsunade ever wanted him to set foot in that village again, and he knew that there were quite a few parties that were going to be pissed, and he was going to love every second of it.